I would now like to ask Madame Aisa Kirabo Kacyira to address us. Madame Kacyira has had a distinguished career in local administration in her own country of Rwanda, where she was mayor of the capital city, Kigali, and subsequently a provincial governor. This on-the-ground experience of local administration made her a natural choice to be Deputy Director of UN Habitat. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. It is my joy and pleasure to be here and be part of the 8th session addressing the World Alliance of Cities Against Poverty on a theme that is very passionate to my heart from a personal but also institutional perspective. Safe, smart, and sustainable cities. How can we achieve this? Listening to all the previous speakers, right from the president of this beautiful country to Mary, I have a question in my heart that I would like to share with you. There's a lot of richness of knowledge. There's a lot of good and deep analysis of the challenges we have ahead of us and the opportunities. And yet, what has been put in practice, there are a lot of gaps. What is the missing link? I'm soul searching, and I believe that I think in the next 2 days as we discuss, listen to each other, we'll come up with concrete resolutions and ways forward to ensure that we live in the future for our children and those who will come after us smarter, safer, and more sustainable cities. As has been mentioned, I would like, first of all, to recognize and appreciate the work that has been done by the organizers of the conference and also inviting UN Habitat. And I wish to thank Mary and Madame Bachelet for making it a lot easier for me. I've been really trying to scribble and change a lot of what I'd prepared because they said it so well, maybe being previous presidents, but I'll try as a former mayor, I think, to see how I can complement what they've been talking about. I'll talk much more from the responsibility of UN Habitat in this whole picture, but I'll try to contextualize it, recognizing the presence of local government leaders, especially mayors, recognizing the time that you have accorded to this and knowing how precious time is for you. Because as mayor, everything, you must be a master of everything and an answer to every problem. And that sometimes is not very easy. So what should our priorities be? When we reflect on what has been happening in UN Habitat regarding ensuring smart, safe, and sustainable cities, we have done quite a lot in responding to the Millennium Development Goal that had indicated that by 2020, we should have 100 million people living in slums or slum-like conditions, upgraded, supported to get out of slums. We have doubled that number to 200 million. But unfortunately, effectively, we haven't made much progress because the number of people who have joined slums is much higher than those who have been able to get out of slums. And so we are reflecting on what we can do with the local government authorities, with governments, with partners, to ensure that that which we call safe and sustainable cities is effectively being achieved. And on this note, we recognize the support that we've been given by the European Union. We've been working in Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific countries to support in a slum upgrading program. And we do recognize that as much as we are working on supporting people by availing basic services, by improving access to water, sanitation, and shelter, we need to address also in a much stronger way the issues of urban governance, urban planning, and urban economy from a proactive perspective. And it's unfortunate that over the years, I think we saw even from the film, that people have been taking, especially in developing countries, we've been focused on rural development, and urban development has not been looked at positively because of the lack of sufficient proactive planning. It has presented itself much more as a problem of slums. So the tendency and the strategy has been to try to reduce or discourage people from going to urban areas by focusing on rural development. But we do know that in real life, it is integrated. You can't have sustainable rural development without sustainable urban development, and vice versa. So it is important that as we look at this phenomenon of urbanization, we don't look at it from, I'm sorry, probably from my medical background, from a pathological aspect of slums, because slums are a result of urbanization gone wrong, of lack of sufficient governance and planning proactively to harness the advantages of urbanization. We need also to realize that if you talk about sustainable development, we need to encourage sustainable urbanization, because the principles of sustainable urbanization actually encourage us to utilize our resources more effectively and efficiently than ever. But that is only when we have focused on it and ensured that we have sound urban policies at national level and sound urban planning and city extensions at local government level. And so from that perspective, UN Habitat is committed to advocating for change in giving a bigger voice, platform, partnership, and strengthening of institutions, especially at local government level. I'd also like, in addition to the background that has been given, we have talked quite a lot about the role of women. We're also seeing that where the world is urbanizing fastest, the number of youth is much bigger. And it is estimated that as many as 60% of all urban dwellers will be under the age of 18 by 2030. Now, that if we have put in place ways of building the capacity, and as Mary mentioned, especially the issue of inclusiveness and giving the youth the platform to have a say in making decisions and contributing to development, they can be such a powerful source of economic transformation. Again, I'm talking about this from an institution, but also from a personal experience. Having led Kigali City as the mayor from 2006 to 2011, we have over 60% of our population youth. In a post-genocide poor country, it was very, very easy to look at them as a source of vulnerability, insecurity, conflict, and simply keep them off. But I can tell you one thing, that if there was one thing that gave me energy and motivation every single day of my life, it is the youth. You engage them, you encourage them, you help them to build their confidence. They have a lot of innovation in them. They are more IT savvy. We're talking about technology. It takes us a lot longer to adapt to technology. But I think sometimes the gap is between how much time do we give them as leaders? How much time do we take to engage them? How often do we listen to them? And how effectively do we respond to their needs? You only need to do a little, and then the rest, really, they will carry the whole thing through. So I think that is one key thing, that as we empower and look at women very fully, let's also engage our youth, and in so doing, we'll be able to capture and also nurture the energy that they have, and they'll feel a sense of pride and dignity, and they will relentlessly commit to what they believe in. I do believe that an opportunity like this, that brings together stakeholders from different walks of life, as has been well elaborated by the previous speakers, calls us also to strengthen partnerships. And I think this is one thing that we need to look at. How much have we invested in this? I again want to speak from experience that whenever I was faced with a challenge, even today, the first reaction is, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to address it? But I think if you can step back as leaders and say, what can we do about it? Who is better at this? I can't be best in everything. I need to look at, UNDP, UN Women, Mary Robinson Foundation, concerned civil society, and create an enabling environment to help people do their best and just come in to tie the knots. I really feel that I think that's a very relevant message for local governments, but also I think something that we do carry the higher we go up the ladder. I think the more we serve at a higher institutional, international level, the more important it is for us to network. And I do believe that we're here to look at how best can we support the local government to do what they're best at. How best can UN Habitat contribute to that from a policy perspective? And it has come out clear that while biennially, every 2 years, we've got what we call the World Urban Forum. We reflect, we present to you what we've done in terms of research, and we have 2 flagship reports. One that is called the State of World Cities, another one, State of Human Settlements. And then we share with you what we have come up with. But beyond that, we have to ensure that at a national level, these policies, these ideas have been captured to support what you're doing. And so we really want to encourage that what we come up with, let it be enforced into national urban policies. And at local government level, beyond policy, how is it going to be implemented? And how facilitated are you to ensure that that implementation of the national urban policy is going to take place? I recognize that I think one of the problems that we're having, because the pace at which urbanization is taking place is so fast that we spend most of our time reactively responding to that which is coming after us. Because we haven't planned very well, or sometimes because our plans are skewed, we end up with cities moving faster into climate-wise vulnerable zones. We know that most of our informal settlements today, over 60% of urbanization in developing countries is informal settlements. And much of this is in swamps, is in zones that are very vulnerable to flooding. And yet, I think as we were discussing yesterday, Mary, when flooding takes place in cities, we don't look at it as an issue of climate change or as an issue of poor planning that has led to ecological problems. Instead, it's looked at as a physical infrastructure issue. And that is really a misdiagnosis because it will not help us to assess the resilience of our cities to disaster. In UN Habitat, we have come up with research to indicate or to support leaders to assess the resilience of their cities. And this is what we're calling the Urban Resilience Index. So together with the Urban Resilience Index and the City Prosperity Index, these are tools that will help you to proactively assess where you stand and be able to plan and develop capacities to ensure a balanced and sound urban development. This is very, very key because I often ask myself, when I have committed to an issue, say I want to be climate resilient, I want to have climate justice, I want to ensure the community uses renewable energy, how do I go about following up on implementation? It is important that we have a scientific way of assessing what we're talking about, and we also have platforms for monitoring and evaluation. I like the idea of city-to-city relationships and collaboration, and I would like to encourage that city-to-city collaboration should go beyond city building diplomacy. It should be diplomacy together with capacity building and sharing of best practices that will help us to move beyond rhetoric, beyond messages, to actual implementation and addressing of the challenges that we do face today. So as we approach 2015, I'm aware that I think most of you, or all of you, have been engaged in discussions regarding post-2015. What do you want to see beyond 2015? I trust, as was made very clear during Rio Plus 20, that we want to ensure sustainable development. We will not be able to ensure sustainable development without sustainable and resilient urbanization. And I believe that the leaders in this process are the local government leaders, and that is why we as UN Habitat have committed and have signed a memorandum of cooperation between us and UCOG, but we also have a platform called UN ACLA, where the executive director gets access to ideas, opinions, issues that local governments feel they would like to share with UN Habitat. We want to encourage this more. Secondly, we believe that as we forge forward defining exactly what we want in 2015, I want to reiterate and endorse what has been said before, that we need to ensure a human rights-based approach to urbanization. We want to ensure an engendered program. We want to ensure a youth-led and empowering program of process of urbanization. We would like to see how best we can harness from the current technology in facilitating this development process. And I think by strengthening partnerships, it certainly will be much achievable. In particular, in 2016, UN Habitat has a conference. This is it's referred to as Habitat 3, and this is going to be the third conference. Every 20 years, we have a conference where we reflect on how we have contributed to the urban agenda, and the last one took place in 1996. The next one will take place in 2016, 1 year after the 2015. We want to work with you. We want to encourage you to be part of this because preparations have started, and we would like mainly to focus on how best can we serve this urban agenda. I want to thank you so much for your kind attention.